Have you noticed how the digital world feels smaller lately? Like your favorite apps just vanish into thin air? It's not an accident. We are uncovering the secret strategy of tech giants' acquisitions that is reshaping our reality. This is the kill zone, a systematic approach to market competition designed to suffocate rivals before they can walk. We're talking about total innovation suppression. The brightest minds are being bought out, not to build the future, but to bury it. From corporate monopolies hoarding talent, to the destruction of the products you love. This is a graveyard of ideas, and the scariest part? You are paying for it. Your consumer choices are being erased. The death zone for startups is growing wider every day. Antitrust regulators are waking up, but is it too late to stop the bleeding? We're diving deep into the technology industry analysis you won't hear on the news. Are you ready to see the invisible war through your wallet? This is the story big tech doesn't want you to know.
Have you ever wondered why that app you love just disappeared? You know the one. It made your life easier, solved a problem perfectly, and then one day, poof, it's gone. Acquired by a tech giant, they said. We're excited about the future, they promised. And then, silence. The app shuts down, the team vanishes, and you're left downloading some bloated alternative that doesn't work half as well. You've felt this, haven't you? That quiet frustration when innovation just seems to stop. When every new phone release feels like the same device with a slightly better camera. When the apps you depend on get bought out and killed off, one by one. It's not your imagination. There's a reason the tech landscape feels stagnant. A reason why the same 5 companies dominate every corner of your digital life. And it's not because they're just better at competing. What if I told you that the biggest technology companies in America, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, are running what insiders call a kill zone, a documented, deliberate strategy where they don't just outcompete their rivals, they hunt them. They acquire promising startups not to integrate their innovations, but to execute them, to bury the technology that could have disrupted their empires. Stay with me here, because what you're about to discover goes deeper than you think. This isn't about antitrust lawsuits or regulatory debates. This is about your money, your choices, and the innovation that's being systematically erased from the market before you even know it existed. The venture capital game is rigged. The startups that could have changed everything are being suffocated in their cribs. And the cost? It's showing up in your portfolio, in your options as a consumer, and in an economy that's starting to look less like capitalism and more like a cartel. What you're about to see will change how you think about every tech acquisition you hear about from now on. If this is making you angry, good. That anger means you're paying attention. And here's the thing. Because we're talking about the very companies that control the algorithms deciding what you see online, this video might never reach the audience it should. That's why I need your help. If you believe this conversation matters, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel. It's not just about supporting me. It's about telling the algorithm that financial truth matters more than corporate PR. And listen, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what app or service did you love that got acquired and destroyed? What innovation disappeared on you? Your stories aren't just comments. They fuel what we investigate next. Let's build this together. Now let me take you back to where this entire playbook was born. Because this strategy didn't originate in Silicon Valley. It started in an industry even more ruthless, big pharma. Economists studying the pharmaceutical sector noticed something disturbing. Major drug companies were acquiring smaller biotech firms at an alarming rate. But here's the twist. They weren't buying them to bring new drugs to market. They were buying them to ensure those drugs never reached your medicine cabinet. Think about that for a second. A small company develops a breakthrough treatment that could compete with a blockbuster drug owned by a pharmaceutical giant. That giant makes billions annually from their existing patent. So what do? They acquire the startup, shelve the new drug, and keep selling you the old one at premium prices. They literally purchase innovation just to execute it. The term for this is killer acquisition, and it's been documented in academic research for over a decade. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. In the 2010s, Silicon Valley looked at Big Pharma's playbook and thought, we can do this too. Between 2010 and 2020, the 5 tech giants, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft, collectively known as GAFAM, completed over 800 acquisitions. Let that sink in. That's one acquisition every 11 days for 10 straight years. 800 companies absorbed into the ecosystem. Now, you might think, well, that's just business. Companies buy other companies all the time. And you'd be right. But this was different. This wasn't traditional competition. This was a fundamental transformation of how the entire tech economy operates. Traditionally, capitalism works through what economists call competition for the market. Companies fight to build the best product, the best service, the best solution. May the best innovation win. Consumers benefit because everyone's trying to outdo each other. But what happened in the last decade flipped that model on its head. We shifted from competition for the market to entry for buyout. Entrepreneurs stopped trying to build the next Google or the next Facebook. Instead, they started building features for Google, building tools that Facebook might want, building anything that could catch the eye of a tech giant for a big payday. The dream changed. It went from, I'm going to disrupt this industry to, I'm going to get acquired before I run out of runway. And the venture capital firms? They adapted. They started funding startups specifically designed to be acquisition targets, not independent competitors. This created what insiders now call the kill zone, a strategic perimeter around each tech giant where innovation goes to die. If you're a startup operating anywhere near Google's territory, Amazon's domain, or Meta's ecosystem, investors know one of two things will happen. Either the giant buys you, or they clone your features and crush you with their infinite resources and distribution. So why would any rational investor fund a company in the kill zone? They wouldn't, and they don't. This means entire categories of innovation simply don't get funded anymore. Ideas that could have transformed industries never make it past the whiteboard because everyone knows the game is rigged. The chessboard is already owned. What's terrifying is how invisible this is to most people. You don't see the apps that were never built. You don't hear about the startups that couldn't raise funding because they were too close to big tech's turf. You just experience the slow suffocation of innovation without realizing what's been taken from you. Now I want to go even deeper into how this machine actually operates, because understanding the mechanics changes everything about how you see the market. Write in the comments, I see the kill zone. So how do they actually pull this off without regulators shutting them down? How do trillion-dollar corporations systematically eliminate competition in broad daylight? The answer lies in manipulating perception. They've mastered the art of framing these acquisitions as something benign, even beneficial. They talk about integration, improved user experience, bringing teams together to build something amazing. It sounds collaborative, innovative, almost philanthropic. But the internal documents tell a very different story. In 2012, Facebook was deciding whether to acquire Instagram. At the time, Instagram was a rapidly growing photo-sharing app with about 30 million users and zero revenue. Facebook had nearly 1 billion users and was printing money, so why buy them? Mark Zuckerberg sent an email to his CFO that would later become evidence in antitrust investigations. He wrote explicitly that the reason to acquire Instagram was to neutralize a potential competitor, not to integrate their technology, not to improve Facebook's product, to neutralize a threat. He acknowledged that Instagram could become dangerous to Facebook's dominance, and the solution wasn't to compete harder or build better features. The solution was to buy them and control the pace of their innovation. Think about what that means. One of the most powerful tech executives in the world openly admitted in writing that he was acquiring a company to eliminate competition. And yet, the deal went through. Regulators approved it. Instagram became part of the Facebook empire, now Meta, and the competitive threat was erased. But here's where it gets even more insidious. They've evolved beyond traditional acquisitions because those at least trigger regulatory scrutiny. Now they use a psychological and legal loophole called the acqui-hire. Sometimes the monopoly isn't about owning the product. It's about hoarding the talent, the brains behind the innovation. Let me give you a perfect example that just happened. In 2024, Microsoft executed a masterclass in competitive dismantling with a company called Inflection AI. Inflection had raised over $1 billion and was building a serious competitor in the artificial intelligence space. They had world-class researchers, cutting-edge technology, and real momentum. Microsoft didn't buy the company outright, which would have triggered antitrust reviews and regulatory headaches. Instead, they did something far more clever. They hired the founders. They hired the entire technical team. They paid a licensing fee for access to Inflection's technology, but they didn't formally acquire the company. On paper, Inflection AI still exists, but in reality, it's a hollow shell. The brains are gone. The leadership is gone. The competitive threat is gone. And technically, no merger occurred, so there's nothing for regulators to review. It's like watching someone dismantle a rival piece by piece, strip it for parts, and walk away while the empty building still stands with a sign on it. The competition has been neutralized without ever triggering the legal mechanisms designed to prevent exactly this kind of market manipulation. This is the evolved playbook. It's not loud, it's not obvious, it's surgical, and it's happening constantly beneath the surface of the tech industry. What makes this so psychologically devastating for entrepreneurs and investors is the realization that the game isn't actually about building the best product anymore. It's about navigating a minefield where the biggest players can simply erase you from existence, either by buying you, copying you, or gutting your team. The best idea doesn't win. The most well-connected idea wins. The idea that doesn't threaten the wrong giant wins. And this fundamentally distorts the entire innovation economy. Talented engineers and entrepreneurs start making decisions based not on what's best for consumers or what could transform an industry, but on what's safest, what's most likely to result in an acquisition before the runway ends. The incentive structure is completely backwards. Drop a comment if you're starting to see how deep this goes. The game is rigged. Now let me show you what this actually costs, because this isn't some abstract economic theory or a problem that only affects Silicon Valley insiders. This is destroying real value, real innovation, and real opportunities that could have transformed entire industries. Let's start with what I call the ghost products. Researchers analyzed over 300 acquisitions made by big tech companies over the past decade. What they found was shocking. Nearly 64% of the products acquired were either discontinued outright or turned into what they call zombies, technically still existing but completely inactive, receiving no updates, no support, no development. Just abandoned. Think about that. Almost 2 out of every 3 acquired companies had their products killed. These weren't failing products. Many of them were thriving, growing, loved by their users. But they threatened the wrong giant at the wrong time, so they got absorbed and executed. Their technology buried in a vault somewhere. Their teams scattered or reassigned to work on projects that reinforced the parent company's dominance. Dark Sky was a beloved weather app with a passionate user base. Apple acquired it, shut it down. Fleetsmith was a device management tool for small businesses. Apple bought it, discontinued it. The pattern repeats endlessly, but the financial destruction goes even deeper than just killing acquired products. There's a phenomenon economists have started calling the VC chill, and it's absolutely devastating to innovation. Here's how it works. When a big tech giant signals interest in a particular sector or announces they're entering a space, venture capital investment in that entire category drops by 40 to 60% almost immediately. Investors pull back. They stop funding startups in that domain. Why? Because they know the math doesn't work anymore. You can't compete with infinite resources, distribution networks that reach billions of users, and a willingness to operate at a loss just to crush you. So venture capitalists rationally decide to deploy their money elsewhere, in sectors the giants haven't dominated yet. The problem is, this creates entire dead zones in the innovation landscape. Brilliant ideas that could have solved real problems never get funded. Entrepreneurs with transformative visions can't raise capital. The market for innovation shrinks because everyone's playing defense, trying to avoid the kill zone rather than pursuing the best ideas. And here's the truly tragic part. Even when regulators try to step in, the damage is already done. Look at what happened with iRobot, the company that makes Roomba vacuum cleaners. Amazon announced plans to acquire them for over $1 billion. The deal made strategic sense for Amazon's smart home ambitions. But regulators got nervous. They saw Amazon potentially dominating yet another sector of the connected home market. So they started an investigation, and the deal dragged on for months. During that entire time, iRobot was in limbo. They couldn't make major strategic decisions because they were waiting for the acquisition to close. They couldn't pursue aggressive innovation because why invest heavily when you're about to be absorbed? They essentially put their company on pause, waiting for Amazon. Then the regulators blocked the deal. You'd think that would be a victory for competition, right? iRobot stays independent, continues innovating, everyone wins. But that's not what happened. By the time the deal collapsed, iRobot had missed critical windows for product development and market positioning. Their stock price tanked. They had to lay off nearly half their workforce. The company that was once a leader in robotics and smart home technology was crippled, not by the acquisition going through, but by the process itself. The kill zone destroys value whether the deal happens or not. Just the threat of acquisition, just the possibility of a giant entering your space, is enough to warp decision-making, freeze investment, and kill momentum. This is capital destruction on a massive scale, and it's happening invisibly, company by company, innovation by innovation. Comment below if this is starting to click. Innovation graveyard. But here's the question that changes everything. Who actually benefits from this system? Because when you follow the money, you realize this isn't just about tech companies protecting their turf. There's a much larger financial machinery at work, and understanding it reveals the true power structure behind the kill zone. The biggest beneficiaries aren't the founders or the innovators. They're the massive institutional investors who own enormous stakes in these tech giants. Firms like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street collectively hold trillions of dollars across the market. And here's what matters. They don't want competition. They want predictability. They want monopoly rents. Think about it from their perspective. If you're managing hundreds of billions of dollars invested in Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, what scenario do you prefer? Do you want a vibrant, competitive market where new startups constantly challenge the incumbents, forcing them to innovate faster, spend more on research and development, and potentially see their profit margins compress? Or would you rather have those companies systematically eliminate competitive threats, maintain 40% profit margins, and deliver steady, predictable returns quarter after quarter? The answer is obvious. Wall Street doesn't reward risk when you're already dominant. It rewards entrenchment. So when Facebook buys Instagram or WhatsApp, when Google acquires Waze or Fitbit, when Amazon absorbs Whole Foods or Ring, the institutional shareholders aren't worried about stifled innovation. They're celebrating reduced volatility and protected cash flows. This creates a feedback loop where the financial incentives of the entire system align around preventing disruption rather than encouraging it. But the control mechanisms go even deeper than just buying competitors. Big tech has built something insidious, massive patent fortresses. When they acquire startups, they're not always after the product or even the team. Sometimes they're hunting for intellectual property. They accumulate thousands of patents, creating what's essentially a legal minefield around their core businesses. These patent walls serve a specific purpose. They make it nearly impossible for anyone to innovate in adjacent spaces without risking a lawsuit. Even if you develop something genuinely novel, if it touches technology covered by one of the thousands of patents these giants have stockpiled, you're vulnerable. And fighting a patent lawsuit against a trillion-dollar company isn't a battle most startups can afford. So innovators are forced into one of two positions. Either avoid entire categories of innovation that are too close to big tech's patent clusters, or build your company knowing you'll eventually need to sell to the very company whose territory you're encroaching on. It's protection money dressed up as intellectual property strategy. What emerges is effectively a feudal economy. You have the lords, Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, who own the land, control the infrastructure, and set the rules. Then you have the serfs, the startups, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, who work the fields hoping that one day a lord will grant them favor in the form of an acquisition. the serfs don't really own anything. They're building on platforms controlled by the lords, using distribution channels owned by the lords, often funded by venture capitalists who have relationships with the lords. If a serf refuses to sell, like Snapchat famously did when they rejected Facebook's acquisition offer, the lord simply copies their best features and uses their massive user base to crush the upstart. Facebook literally cloned Snapchat stories, integrated it across Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, and Snapchat's growth stalled almost immediately. Their stock price collapsed. The message was clear: you can try to stay independent, but we control the kingdom. This isn't capitalism in the traditional sense. It's not a free market where the best ideas win. It's a permission-based economy where innovation happens only in spaces the lords haven't claimed, and only with the understanding that if you get too successful, you'll either be absorbed or destroyed. The entire structure is designed to extract value from innovation without allowing that innovation to actually disrupt the established order. Write this in the comments if you're seeing the system clearly now. Modern feudalism. I know what you're probably thinking right now. This sounds overwhelming. It sounds like the game is so rigged that there's nothing anyone can do about it. But here's the truth that the lords don't want you to understand. The system only works if you keep playing by their rules. And there are cracks forming in the foundation. The tide is starting to turn, and you have more power than you realize, both as an investor and as a consumer. The first shift in mindset is understanding that every decision you make either reinforces the monopoly or weakens it. When you lock all your data, all your workflows, all your digital life into one ecosystem, you're giving that company extraordinary leverage over you. They can discontinue products you depend on. They can raise prices. They can change terms of service. And you have no recourse because switching costs become unbearable. So the first act of resistance is diversification. Audit your digital ecosystem. Look at where you're vulnerable. If Apple shut down iCloud tomorrow, what would you lose? If Google decided to discontinue a service you rely on, and they've done this dozens of times, could you recover? The goal isn't paranoia, it's autonomy. Use tools that prioritize interoperability and data portability. Support platforms that let you export your information and move freely. This isn't just about convenience. It's about maintaining leverage in a relationship where the other side has infinite resources. The second battlefield is regulatory. And I know, most people's eyes glaze over when you mention legislation. But this matters because the rules of engagement are being rewritten right now, and the outcome will determine whether the next generation of innovation gets strangled in the crib or actually has a chance to flourish. There's a bill currently working its way through the Senate called the Competition and Antitrust Law Enforcement Reform Act. What makes it significant is that it flips the burden of proof. Right now, when big tech wants to acquire a competitor, the government has to prove the merger will harm competition. That's an incredibly high bar, especially when these companies have armies of lawyers and economists who can construct elaborate arguments about why the acquisition is actually good for consumers. This new legislation would reverse that. It would require the acquiring company to prove their merger won't kill competition. That's a game changer because suddenly, the incentive structure shifts. Instead of regulators playing defense, trying to block deals after they're announced, companies would have to think twice before even proposing acquisitions that are transparently anti-competitive. Now, as an investor, this changes how you evaluate opportunities. You need to start distinguishing between companies that are building real, defensible businesses and companies that are essentially building exit strategies. There's a term in venture capital: exit-dependent startups. These are companies whose entire business model depends on being acquired. They're not building sustainable competitive advantages. They're building features they hope Facebook or Google will want to absorb. And if the regulatory environment tightens, if acquisitions become harder to execute, these companies are essentially worthless. So when you're analyzing investment opportunities, ask yourself, does this company have a path to profitability independent of being bought? Are they building genuine moats, network effects, proprietary technology, brand loyalty that could allow them to survive and thrive as a standalone entity? Or are they just hoping to get noticed and acquired before their funding runs out? The companies that are worth your capital are the ones building for independence, not for acquisition. They're the ones that see the kill zone not as an inevitability, but as a challenge to navigate around. They're focused on creating value that's difficult to replicate, serving markets the giants are ignoring, and building relationships with customers that go beyond just being a feature in someone else's platform. This mindset shift matters because it changes the entire innovation landscape. If enough investors start rewarding autonomy over exit potential, if enough consumers demand interoperability and resist lock-in, the balance of power begins to shift. Drop a comment if you're ready to make different choices. Building autonomy. We're standing at a turning point. The era of unchecked acquisitions of companies buying competitors just to bury them is starting to crack. Regulators around the world are finally waking up to the ghost products, the zombie competitors, the innovation graveyards we've been talking about. The FTC is asking harder questions. Legislation is being drafted. The system that allowed this to happen for over a decade is being challenged. But here's what matters most. You made it to the end of this video, which means you're not just passively consuming content. You're actively seeking to understand how the game is actually played. You're part of a minority that wants to see behind the curtain, to understand the mechanics of power and capital that shape the market. And that puts you ahead of most investors who just follow headlines and hope for the best. You now see the kill zone. You understand killer acquisitions. You recognize the feudal structure of modern tech. That knowledge changes everything about how you evaluate companies, how you think about risk, and how you position yourself in a market that's designed to benefit insiders. If you made it this far, do me a favor. Comment below, "I see the system." It lets me know who the real ones are, who's paying attention, who's ready to go deeper. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that this kind of content matters, that people want financial truth, not just hype. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're just getting started unpacking how these monopolies distort markets, manipulate investors, and set the stage for what comes next. Speaking of which, there's a video right here that takes this even further. It shows you how these same dynamics are fueling instability in the stock market, and why the next crash might be closer than you think. Click it. Let's keep going. I'll see you there.